Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and it's Armageddon again. The nuclear bombs are falling. You only have enough time to grab the essentials. Water, food, and maybe your children, and some Doctor Who. But you only have enough time to grab a handful of Doctor Who. So the question is, what if you could only save a third of Doctor Who? But here's the caveat. It has to be in sections. Basically, Doctor Who has run at this point 39 seasons plus a couple seasons in Modern Who that have been specials. So you can divide that into thirds. You can basically pick between seasons 1 through 13 of Classic Who, seasons 14 through 26 of Classic Who, and all of the Modern series. And we'll just go ahead and lump the 13 series of Modern Who in with, its Christmas specials and the Tennant specials and the Whittaker specials. We'll just lump those in together. You can't pick and choose which one you want. You've either got to take the first half, the middle half, or the last half. So seasons 1 through 13 of Classic Who, 14 through 26 of Classic Who, or all of Modern Who, series 1 through 13, plus all of the specials with that. Because you only got enough time to get your arms around one and run down to the bunker. Because you haven't been paying attention to these Armageddon videos and you haven't moved everything down to the bunker already. Except for Flyattractor. Flyattractor gets a pass from this list because I know he's already got everything nice and comfy in his bunker ready for him. All he's got to do is run down there and he's good. He gets a pass. Everyone else hasn't been paying attention, myself included. What can I say? I'm too busy making videos. So, we only got enough time. Everything's lined up on the shelf. We got enough time to grab one armful and we run down to the bunker. Do you take series 1 through 13 of Classic Who's, or seasons I should say, seasons 14 through 26 of Classic Who, or do you take series 1 through 13 of Modern Who? And this is going to vary from person to person. Now, I know immediately Modern Who is the one that's going to get shoved aside. And it's not that I don't like Modern Who. I do prefer Classic Who. But Modern Who has some of the best episodes of Doctor Who ever made. Let me be clear on that. Classic Who also has some of the best episodes of Doctor Who ever made. Now, Classic Who also has some duds that are pretty bad. Although, to be fair, none of them quite touch some of the monstrosities that Modern Who has done. That's a whole nother video. But I know, as much as I like Modern Who, that the more of Classic Who I've seen, and this is someone who started with Classic Who, but as I'm finally closing in on seeing all of Classic Who, I just like the tone and feel of it more. So I know Modern Who would get pushed aside. It would really come down, for me, between the first half and the back half. Now, this, of course, is going to vary from person to person. Like, there are a lot of fans out there that just watch the Modern series. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not one of those people that's like, well, if you only watch the Modern series, then you're not really a fan. I'm not one of those people. Some people, for whatever reason, they just can't get into Classic Who. Maybe it's the effects. Maybe it's the old camera angles. Maybe it's the way that especially 60s Who looks very much like a teleplay. And it does drag more. I hate to use the word drag. Classic Who ran at a slower pace because television back then ran at a slower pace, especially when you get into the 60s. And some people, younger people, probably more familiar with modern television, they just can't get into that. That's fair. I respect that. Just like some Classic Who fans can't get into Modern Who because of some of the ways it does things. They don't like the way it characterizes the Doctor. They don't like the Doctor being romantic. And that's also fair. It's possible to enjoy one without enjoying the other. I like both myself. So I can understand some people only immediately picking the Modern series. That's the one they watch. That's the one they're familiar with. Or even if they start, maybe they started with a Modern show and they went back. They watched Classic Who. They like Classic Who, but Modern show is just their bag. That's fair. But then a lot of people, at least the ones that probably watch my channel regularly, because I talk about Classic Who a lot, would probably pick in Classic Who. The trick is really interesting because, especially considering how the split comes right down in the middle of Tom Baker's era. Really, I think a lot of people instinctively, I know my instinctive thought is to pick seasons 1 through 13 because that's pretty strong. That's a pretty strong run. But doing that, you only get Tom Baker's first 2 seasons. Now, those are arguably his best seasons. Those are 2 of the strongest seasons in all of Doctor Who. You could argue you're getting his best seasons. But if you pick the other one, which is, of course, seasons 14 through 26, you're getting 5 Tom Baker seasons. So it's a quality over quantity thing there. And keep in mind, I like every season of Tom Baker. He might have some stories that aren't the best in the world, but I don't think he has a bad season. I enjoy season 18. It's very unique. There's no other season in Doctor Who like it. I like the Williams era. All 3 seasons to one degree or another. I happen to love season 17. It ranked very high on my list ranking the seasons and series. Matter of fact, it was number 3 on that list, which may have been a little too high to be fair. So on one hand, if you go 14 through 26, you're getting 5 Tom Baker seasons, and you're getting at least 1 season from each of his era, because you are getting 14, so you get some Hinchcliffe era, you're getting all of the Williams era, and you're getting his J&T season. And then 80s Who is better than people give it credit for, as I've seen more of 80s Who these past couple years. 80s Who isn't bad. I mean, there are bad episodes. Some of them are mixed bags, but like season 22 is amazing. I love season 22. It's very dark. And Colin isn't the best actor in the role. He's fine. That outfit, it makes mistakes, but story-wise, it's really good. Now, I don't care for season 23 as much, but I feel like season 24 gets the ball rolling again. Time in the Ronnie has its issues. Delta and the Bannerman is not very good, but Dragonfire and Paradise Towers are really good. And that gives us everything we need to get seasons 25 and 26. Season 25 is really good, and season 26 is amazing. And I think even Davison has some good stuff in there. Season 19 is good, aside from Kenda. Season 20, I've actually realized recently, season 20 is a good season. I can't really think of a dud in it right all. Terminus is kind of forgettable, but it's perfectly watchable. And then season 21 is also pretty good for the most part. Twin Dilemma's not great. Arc of Infinity is vastly underrated, but I have a childhood attachment to that. If there's a 5th Doctor story I have an attachment to outside of 5 Doctors in Castrovalva, right off the top of my head, it's probably Arc of Infinity. I know I saw that one a lot when I was little, so that could be nostalgia carrying on for that. But I do like that story a lot. Frontios is really good too. Davison has really, really good in that one. And of course, Caves is amazing. So there's definitely some good reasons to want to pick 14 through 26. Let me be clear, because 80s Who I think is very underrated, even though it does have its issues. But you also have to keep in mind, I know a lot of you are still season 1 through 13, but then you have to take the missing stories into account. 97 episodes you're not getting. Now you still get to keep, let's say you get to keep everything that's been done, like all of the audios, you get to keep the animations, the recons. So you still have, say, the recons, the animations, and all the audios. You get all that. That's still 97 episodes you don't have. But on the other side of that, the 60 seasons were a lot bigger than a lot of the other seasons in Classic Who. With the 60 seasons, as opposed to, say, the last 4 seasons of Classic Who, which were only 14 episodes. Seasons 23 through 26 were 14-episode seasons, whereas the 60s seasons averaged 40 episodes. 40 episodes. Now, some of them were a little less, 38, 39, but some of them were also like 43, 45. So let's just say 40 episodes. The 60s seasons were huge. So even taking into account 97 missing episodes, you still have a ton of episodes from the 60s. A ton of them. Way more than they did even in the 70s when they were doing 20 to about 26, 27 episodes in the 70s. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect your decision. On one hand, missing episodes you don't have. On the other hand, way bigger seasons in the 60s. And again, you're getting good stuff. Hartnell's era is really good. The more I see of Hartnell's era, the more I think it's really strong, especially since the show is finding its footing. It has no previous incarnation of the show to build off of. It's having to start from scratch. Troughton's era I love. Despite so much of it being missing, I love the second Doctor. He's my second favorite Doctor, and he is phenomenal. The Pertwee era is arguably the strongest era the show's ever had, if you're going by a whole Doctor's era. Now, Tom was there so long, I feel like he has 3 distinct eras, with the Hinchcliffe era being the strongest, and then the Williams era and the J&T season, I think, usually being considered weaker, even though I like them as well. But I think judging a Doctor's era as a whole, over their whole tenure, Pertwee probably has, there's a strong argument for this, I think, the strongest era in his 5 seasons. He doesn't have a lot of what I'd call really bad stories. He might have some that are weaker, But like, he has no stories that I just find unwatchable. Not one. My least favorite of his when I ranked them was the Claws of Axos. And I can still sit through the Claws of Axos fine. I don't really like it a lot. I don't think it's that great, but there are aspects of it I like. It's perfectly watchable, unlike most other Doctors, which have at least one story I find unwatchable. Now, Tom's only one is Power of Kroll, of course. Ledger Hive I don't really like, but it's perfectly watchable. Very few Doctors have, their whole run where there's no story that I'm like, oh. I mean, Modern Who has a bunch of stories that are just unwatchable. Capaldi has a bunch. Whitaker has a bunch. Smith has some. Even Eccleston has one, but that's more because it unnerves me. Tennant has some. They're just borderline. Every Doctor in Modern Who has at least one story that for one reason or another I find unwatchable. Although there's a little asterisk with Eccleston, because that story is good. It just unnerves the hell out of me. Pertwee could be the only Doctor, actually, that I find that. Now with Troughton, some of it's because of missing stuff. That recon of Space Pirates is really hard to get through. The novelization is way better. I didn't mind it at first, but by the time you get to the end of Space Pirates, you're ready to be at the end of Space Pirates, because that recon is really hard to get through. But even the Dominators, which story-wise could be his weakest, is watchable. It's one of those you watch every blue moon, but it's watchable. So if I was picking, despite having less of Tom Baker, despite only getting 2 seasons instead of 5, I think I'd still go with seasons 1 through 13. Again, partially because those are arguably Tom Baker's 2 strongest seasons. Seasons 12 and season 13 are just classics. I don't think they have a dud in them. I really like Robot a lot. I just have a personal fondness for that one. And it's certainly not a bad story objectively. Ark in Space is a classic. Sontaran Experiment is a great 2-parter that realizes probably more than any other 2-parter in Classic Who that it only needs to be a 2-parter. If it had been a 4-parter, I think it would have felt dragged out, but it fits perfectly as a 2-parter, and it's some nice location work. And then, of course, we have Genesis, which is a classic. We have Revenge of the Cybermen, which is probably the most underrated story in all of classic Doctor Who, if not all of Doctor Who. I like Revenge of the Cybermen a lot. And I think even those of you that don't like Revenge of the Cybermen will at least agree with me that the location work in the caves is really well done. They actually had some extra budget for probably the only time ever in Classic Who, so they were able to do that location work down in the caves, and it looks stunningly good. It looks really nice. And I really love Tom Baker in that story and how he's just not having any of it from the Cybermen. I love that. And then, of course, season 13 is just, banger after banger after banger after banger after banger with no bad stories. Objectively, possibly the best season the show has ever done. It's phenomenal. And then, like I said, you have the Hartnell stuff, the Troughton stuff, and the Pertwee stuff. I think if I can only grab one, I'm grabbing seasons 1 through 13, and that's what I'm carrying down there. I will be upset not having some of the other stuff, like not having City of Death will kill me. I love City of Death, my favorite Doctor Who story. So not having it would kill me, but I think if I have to grab and I can't pick and choose, I'm grabbing that first half. And don't get me wrong, there's episodes of Modern Who I would be sad not to have, because there are episodes of Modern Who I absolutely adore. But if I'm in a hurry, because I haven't planned and put things in the bunker like I should have, I need to be watching my own Armageddon videos apparently. I grabbed the first 13 seasons of Doctor Who, seasons 1 through 13, and that's what I take down to the bunker. So I want to know which ones you would take. If you could only take seasons 1 through 13, seasons 14 through 26, or series 1 through 13, plus all the specials and stuff of modern Doctor Who, which ones would you take down to the bunker, and which ones would you let sadly meet their doom? I would like to know your thoughts. Comment down below. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out. I certainly appreciate it. I am trying to grow the channel to 1,000 subscribers. That's my goal in 2023, and we are well on our way to that. So don't forget to click that. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me that way. There's a link to that down in the description below. My entry-level tier is only $2 a month. And it does help me keep the bills paid, and I am very grateful to everyone who is a patron. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. It does make a difference. I also have a P.O. box. If there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, many of you have sent things over 2022 and 2023 that have enabled me to see more of classic Doctor Who, and I very much appreciate that. That's down there as well. And a link to my Amazon wish list is also down there if you would like to check that out. That has been updated recently. Most importantly though, thank you for watching.